So I have a quote for you today, provided by this one. Um, it is as follows: Be wary of those who wield weapons made of your past mistakes, for they do not know you are protected by accountability and change. Gonna be a good one.
I like that.
And we're back with another episode of Pie Talk.
Pi Talk is pursuing internal evolution.
Gotta make sure I'm all good.
I
Tight.
know, I get
Got the
it.
new Pie Talk sweatshirt, fresh off the
Okay, so
press.
before we start, do you have a website for people to go buy on? How do they buy on?
They buy them by contacting me. I'm working on the link
Okay, okay.
for somebody to do what I go through basically to
You
create
should
that.
plug yourself in the beginning about the shirts and again at the end.
Oh, definitely,
Get her
definitely,
in, get her good.
yeah, definitely. So reach out, contact me if you want some of this cool merch. Very comfortable, durable hoodies with a positive message. Pursue internal evolution. And welcome back. This is Pie Talk with your boy Coach B. And for audition number 2, we have.
I'm Amanda, and I do. I was like, what do you want to know now? I think we're getting into all the good juicy details, but I do intuitive, holistic health services and peer support and integration.
All right. So first thing we'll do is start out with big, big wins. What's your big win for the since last time we were doing this? Seems like it was like a couple days ago, but
So a big win for me is I was told that I could officially open up my first office. So that was really exciting. Got the green check. $200 later, but I got the green check.
all right. And so this office you're opening up, what are you going to do in this office?
Great question. My intention is to use all of my education, all of my skills, all of my training, and my lived experience as a peer support to be of service to peers, to our community, to whatever people need, and a whole range of services, not just, for example, not just substance use, say, but or just anxiety, like working with the whole spectrum of the human, a holistic approach.
Okay. I like it. One thing I like to acknowledge is the fans, the people that are watching, the people that are supporting. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for sticking with Pie Talk as long as we've been doing it. I know in some perspectives it's not that long. We have 25 episodes, 10 pilot episodes. So we have like a total of 35, and now we are going into a phase where Priscilla is about to have a baby. And so, we put out some fillers. This is Amanda. This is her second time on the show. And one thing I want to acknowledge is some comments, right? A lot of positive feedback and also some not so good feedback. So, one thing about me is um, I fear no conversation. I believe people should be allowed to make mistakes and also not have those mistakes held against them for however long, right? Who are you to judge? Who am I to judge? So, particularly, there was a challenge somebody had put in there, and I'm not going to get super deep into the commentary other than to say there was sort of a you've been had type of message sent my way, and this person was describing their opinion and their experience apparently with Amanda. And this person went on to say things along the lines of they've been following for X amount of time, a long time, according to them. And this person here is not what they say they are. And so, so I like to stand on the fact that if I listed my documented criminal history, You might say quite the same thing about me. However, I've come to a place where I've completely and utterly changed the way that I maneuver in this world and on earth as a whole. I didn't make changes just to navigate a judicial entanglement, which, by the way, is my big win. So, since last time we were on the show, I have received a letter from a federal judge terminating my probation. So, for the first time in 28 years, mind you, it's been a long time, I am completely and utterly free. I have no enemies that I know of. I have no judicial entanglements, no probation, no nothing. Right. And so, that being said, the pursuit of internal evolution is something I stand on. It's a philosophy I model and live by in peer support, in recovery coaching, in my everyday life. I try to be better than I was yesterday. That is the agreement. That is what we agreed to when we kind of developed the a blueprint agreements, which at some point I'm going to ask Amanda to read and decide here now on this second auditioning episode if these agreements are in alignment with you and your journey.
I
But
like that.
before, yeah,
I
before
appreciate
that,
that.
I guess people have placed an elephant in the room, and I'm going to unveil this this elephant, right?
Ooh, should we go about it in a shamanic journey way, unveiling the spirit animal?
Once the veil's been lifted, it's hard to put it back on. Once
Mm-hmm.
you've decided to take accountability for your actions, for your life, and for the things that you're hoping to bring to earth and to your experience and to other people's experience when they interact with you, you have to then also take accountability for the negative, the positive in your past, and the negative and the positive in your future. So, without further ado, this isn't something that we normally do. However, this is a interview audition process.
And you ran my background check,
I
and the
ran
fans say there's some speculation.
yeah, there definitely is some speculation. And there's one particular incident that keeps getting brought to the fold. So apparently you are a viral racist.
Uh-huh. That's what they call me, so watch out. Are you sure you want to be in the same room as me? I bite. No, I'm just kidding.
No, absolutely. And so, in all fairness, I'm more concerned with, like, people can go watch the video, right? If they want to indulge in the tea part of the mess, part of the message, right? But for me and for my platform, it is about authenticity and intention moving forward, right? There's a lot of people who, if they hold my past against me, will never sit in a room with me just because it aligns with their morals not to be with that kind of person, right?
Mm.
I was that kind of person in a lot of ways to a lot of different people, but there's also a larger group of people in my community who see the authenticity and the changes I've made, who understand the philosophies, that I get behind, and who are followers of my journey and they can see it. So the question is not that you did or didn't do the thing. It's there.
I did it. I'm guilty, and
Yeah,
I
it
take full
happened.
accountability and responsibility for it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So my question is, how did you grow from that experience? Like, what were some of the things that allowed you to navigate having that experience? Because whatever moment in life that caused that, that is a glimpse of somebody's entire experience on this earth. And it was weaponized and it was viral and it was gross, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was an icky moment, and the worst part of it was I recorded myself in the moment. I posted the initial video, and I was trying to share a different message and got caught up in the mess, which is what then went viral, which is like the wildest part of it too, is like everything that happened in the actual building itself before I grabbed my phone to try to share that message. and my adrenaline was going.
Yeah.
And instead, I said a bunch of stuff I didn't mean to say, and I've never ever said in my life, which upon like how did I grow from that? The deepest part was like sitting with it and like sitting with like, is this like a behavior that I've ever done in the past? Is this like a repeat behavior of mine? And once I sat with that, like kind of like a ball of yarn, and I started to like detangle that, I reached out to relatives, I reached out to friends. My I grew up with two male cousins. One of them's gay, one of them's black. Well, I'm being viral on the internet as a homophobic, racist bigot, and that's what I'm going viral for. So the first thing I immediately did was reach out to my two cousins. And first, I apologized that anything that I said in the heat of the moment, if it directly impacted or affected them, that was not my intention. And I asked them if that was anything that I've ever done or said my whole life. And my family was like, Amanda, you were the family tree hugging angel. You have never been in trouble. You've never hurt anyone. You've never done that. You've never been aggressive. You've never been angry. But when I sat with sat them with that feedback, and I started to meditate with it, and I started to meditate on some of like the really mean comments that mental, like on my mental health, were really, really hard. And I sat with the comments and like, where did the phrase I said, like, where did it even come from? And when I sat with it, it wasn't even mine. It was a projection and a program that I grew up in New York City,
Yeah.
like yourself, and being a participant of 9/11, after 9/11 happened, all I heard out of my relatives, the people on the train, the people on the bus, my whole community was go back to your own country, go back to your own country, go back to your own country. And it wasn't something that I've ever said to anybody literally other than this one incident. But in that heat of that moment, that came out and it just pulled some old programming to the forefront. And when I said that, that triggered the other person, and they called me the see you next Tuesday word, which then triggered a lot because that's actually that's my activator word. That is the word that multiple abusers in my life have used in a lot of really terrible experiences. So when that happened, I saw red and I was frozen and I thought I was going to get hit. And I'm from New York City. And in that situation, I'm going to be honest with you, if it was in New York City, that it would have not went down that way. There would have been people who immediately would have came over and been like, there's two grown men screaming at you with their hands like this in the store. This is before what I recorded, right? This is the message I was trying to share and I didn't get to share because I was elevated. I was activated. I had two grown men in uniform yelling at me. I was being kicked out of the store for looking like me, which led to me holding my ground. And when they were yelling and screaming at me, get out of the store, and I was like, I did nothing wrong. You could call the cops. And they're screaming at me, get out of my store. And I thought, I'm just going to hold my ground in front of these cameras. I did nothing wrong. And that's when I saw red. They said something. I saw red. He was foreigner. That's my recent abuser. My wound was a little open. And I said, I should have said, if you're going to be rude, go back. Don't work in customer service. But what came out was that when I reflected on it, for those months, with that phrase, go back to your own country, that wasn't something I ever even said to anyone my whole life. But in that, that adrenaline's pumping. I'm seeing red. He said something. It activated. You're not thinking clearly. I immediately was like, if you're going to be rude, go back to your own country. And that activated the next, it's like a domino effect. That activated the coworker who happened to be gay. And he got in my face and he was like 6 something. And I actually thought I was going to get hit. I actually thought I was going down. And he just started screaming, call me a cunt. Like, see you next Tuesday, wailing his hands. And I just stood there and I kept thinking in my head over and over, I'm going to get hit. I'm going to go down. Okay, you took self-defense. Put your hands up. You're going to get hit. You're going to go down. And all that came out of my mouth, though, because I live with CPTSD, all that came out of my mouth was like, what did you just say to me? Like a broken record. And he said, you heard me, you effing cunt.
Yeah, yeah.
Over and over. And when I left, I tried to record the end. And when I got in my car, I was really scared. Like I didn't feel safe in my environment. I didn't feel safe with the interaction that went down, what it looked like from other people's perspectives and judgment. And I started to record. And I tried to record what happened, but I was under the adrenaline. I was under the rush, and I used the wrong words.
Well,
and
not
that
only
was
that,
it.
yeah. By the time you recorded, you've already missed a big piece of what essentially happened
Mm-hmm.
leading up to that.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of it still the acceptance of accountability is the biggest piece,
Mm-hmm.
right? Fuck it. I messed up, right? I said the things, I did the things, whatever, right? If I stop being friends with everybody in my life who said something derogatory because of my race, I would have had a lot less friends growing up because I came from New York to Lacey, Washington. And what I realized in these situations is, especially when we're talking about the lack of emotional regulation,
Mm-hmm.
you take a child, for example, a child in their angry, scared, hungry, whatever form they're in, will say the thing that they believe will cause the most hurt or reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we do the same thing as adults. For example, I come from a gang culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? There were times where I remember, and this is like, to me, it was funny, but at the end of the day, when I looked back on it, I mean, it was intention.
Mm-hmm.
Intention is what matters, right? When I'm this particular gang and I made someone upset that wasn't in a gang,
Mm-hmm.
they used a derogatory term for the wrong gang on me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Bloods are called something derogatory,
Yeah.
Crips are called something derogatory. You used the wrong one, right?
Mm.
At first, I laughed, and I remember, this situation, but being incarcerated and being in an environment like that, other people hearing it led to that
Mm-hmm.
altercation having to come to fisticuffs. And the reason is because even though he called me the wrong slur for the gang I was in, because this was a person that wasn't involved in gangs,
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the difference,
Mm-hmm.
it was the intent
Mm-hmm.
to cause me harm or
Mm-hmm.
disrespect.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like,
He intended, like, no matter what was coming out of his
yeah,
mouth,
it's
his
like
intention was
it's
to
like
cause
so
harm.
so like you share certain things with people, and then you get close with them, and then what ends up happening or could happen is, for example, you just shared CUNT is your word, right? So if I was in a not so good place, and
Mm-hmm.
we came to a disagreement or argument,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't able to regulate my emotions based on something you said,
Mm-hmm.
first thing coming out of my mouth is what?
See you next Tuesday.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Automatically, because
You know that's gonna
you
get me.
already shared that that's
Mm-hmm.
that's your trigger word. That's the thing that nobody can say to you because it'll cause the most damage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we always do.
Yep.
That's just the normal, right? Now, regardless what the reason was
Mm-hmm.
behind them kicking you out, whether it was because you didn't look like them or not, you don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
You can assume,
Mm-hmm.
but the point of the matter was there was energy exchange,
Mm-hmm.
and it was conflicting energy, and in two different sides of whatever the conflict is, there's two sets of grown adults who lack emotional regulation.
Yep.
And in that scenario, words get tossed back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. People will call you Karen and racist and a bigot because they've seen the clip that you yourself posted,
Yep.
right? And that becomes Amanda's narrative, right? I have a completely different narrative, right? I have letters from prosecutors that said, I was the worst of the worst thing to ever happen to the county, and that I thought I was this, and then I wouldn't amount to anything, and that everybody around me either died or did drugs or whatever. Like there was this whole narrative, you know. But the bottom line is, regardless what we do, the pursuit of internal evolution is about doing better,
Mm-hmm.
choosing to do better now,
Mm-hmm.
choosing to move in a way that is about growing and not destroying, right? We're
And this was
talking,
my domino for growth. To answer your earlier, like this was like that light that that lit the match, and that's what actually got me into peer support. It was
yeah,
after all that led me down that path. So
yeah,
I'm really grateful. Kind of one of those, like, everything happens for a reason. I do believe in that. And that was something that my ego needed to be checked on a lot of different things through that experience. And I needed that self awareness that there's a different culture in New York City than there is on the West Coast. And there's a different sensitivity level with using language. And I wasn't being mindful. I didn't understand what being trauma informed was. I didn't understand that concept then. And I didn't understand that when I was described, like being with my degree in forensics, we use descriptives. We use descriptive. That's everything, details and descriptives. So when I share stories sometimes, in this case, I started sharing all the descriptives. Well, the descriptive is the guy was gay, but I didn't use that word because back east, you would say to a friend, "Hey, you want to go to the movies? Nah, I don't want to go. I'm going to my girlfriend's house. Don't be a fag." Like that was part of like the culture where I grew up, where it wasn't like derogatory or intentionally mean. It was just a phrase. So when that part came up in that descriptive, I didn't even have to say what he was. Appropriately, I shouldn't have said anything in
Yeah.
my story. But that was where I learned on my journey how important like being trauma informed is, and being intentional with your words, and also regulating your own system and not recording in the heat of the moment. And there's so many, big takeaways, but also my mental health and my growth was the biggest. Um, when that match got lit, that sent me on a huge journey. I did intensive outpatient therapy programs, 12 hours of therapy a week. And then I got into peer support shortly after, and it's changed my life for the better, I like to think.
Yeah, on the first episode, you mentioned you had came here straight from a therapy session, and I remember I highlighted that. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
that's and that's commendable, right? So this isn't a case of someone saying like, "I'm perfect. I did a thing. So what?" This is from what you shared with me. Now we have zero history,
Mm-hmm.
as what I mean, other than
Yeah.
a professional setting. So for what I've seen and what I've witnessed and what I'll take at face value is is your accountability.
Mm-hmm.
You're being vulnerable and saying, I am in therapy. I do things. I have done things that aren't in alignment with sometimes the way you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
happens. Now, when I hear a narrative that a person is a particular thing or has a particular bias or prejudice, I can't really personally come to that conclusion based on one clip of an event,
Mm-hmm.
like one glimpse into somebody's life. You know, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I got lots of times in my history that I can think about where I was in relationships with people, with females who, in their anger, have said something that would have been considered very racist.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed in that relationship until it ended,
Yeah.
right? And so,
So you didn't hold that over her head for the rest of her life.
well, of course not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, are you though?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because here we are,
Mm-hmm.
to me, and this is my opinion, somebody who really lives in racism, usually it's around a fear or like a deep rooted like hatred. It's not positive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's like you can hide.
Yeah.
When somebody's really doesn't like a particular group of people and that's their identity, you wouldn't be sitting here like this in a room. You know what I
And
mean?
probably my memes and my other posts and other things I would share through the years would probably also reflect a taste of that, because if you look at the media now, there's all these separations, and it's pretty obvious what a lot of people feel based off what they share, like social experiments we talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
And doing a lot of like, I've challenged a couple people through the years, with the last 2 years of this holding over my head. I've challenged a few people, and I was like, well, if you really dive or have been following me, right, for these people who have been following my journey, you really dive into all my content, there's not like a repetitive pattern. It's just an incident, like you said. It's just this one incident. I royally effed up. I'm like, and I tried to take accountability immediately. Actually, I did a public apology. That backfired real quick. I used all the things my therapist taught me. Oh no, that the world was not ready for that. So then I went round two. I tried to do a public apology round two on YouTube. World was not happy and impressed on that. That one I dived into the whys,
Mm-hmm.
what I learned, right?
Well, there's what happens is, and a lot of people have a high standard for apologies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's for sure.
when we say things, there's certain key words that a naysayer will kind of look for, like, is this really an apology, or is this
Mm-hmm.
what they call justification, right? Because there's apologizing and then there's justifying.
Mm-hmm.
There's, well, I did this thing because, if you start an apology with that,
Mm-hmm.
no one in their right mind is going to accept that as an apology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you started any. I'm just talking,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
There's three
I
of them, so I
well,
tried three times.
well, I didn't watch any. What I'm saying is, I don't know what you started. I'm
Yeah.
just saying from my experience, from my own personal views. Like, if someone goes to apologize to me and the first thing they do is blame me for what they did and then say sorry, I'm gonna only hear the blame. Like,
Yeah,
wait a
yeah.
minute, you didn't even take accountability.
Mm-hmm.
How are you accepting accountability if you're saying you did it because I did whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the end of the day, like, an apology has to really be like accountability, the acceptance of it entirety, and just that's it. You move on,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we start overthinking it and then, but I wouldn't have done it if it, or they said and they did. At the end of the day, when two people get into a yelling style argument, it's two sides to a lack of an emotional regulated state,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because at the state I'm in, a random person for sure, maybe people I'm closer with might be able to push buttons, but a random person is not going to get me to engage in a back and forth screaming match or argument.
That's my first one I've ever had in my whole life too.
It's
Weird.
just, yeah, it's not
So
going to happen.
weird.
It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the level of healing I've done, the journey that I'm on, this stuff that I perpetuate. It's just, it sits in my core. It comes from the inside out. It's growing from in me, out
Mm-hmm.
of me. So it's not something I wear and take
Mm-hmm.
off and put on. When I'm in that space, when I'm sharing energy and I know and acknowledge that I'm an empath, I can feel somebody's angst,
Mm-hmm.
or if they feel blue
Mm-hmm.
or like really angry about a thing.
But that takes
I
practice.
usually, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This is years.
I'm
Like,
practicing.
I spent over 25 years incarcerated in my own anger. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
first to admit that, man. I was a snap case, straight up. Some of it was for survival, but some of it was just pure lack of skills
Mm-hmm.
to regulate my emotions when they
Mm-hmm.
showed up. I would experience them and I would dive in and ride the wave out, and usually that wave was like an angry one. And I
Mm-hmm.
lived in that space for a very long time. Very long time. There's probably people out there who still haven't forgiven me for some of the things that I've done.
Now you've done anger management though is a big step in your journey for that, right?
Well, let's be clear. I've probably done anger management 19 times.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
so
Well,
I've
good on you
been
for taking that accountability.
I've been
Yeah.
on the recipient end of like being in anger management at every prison I've ever been to, at various intervals in my life, but mainly through the incarcerated system, right? This is the first time that I've done it from the other
Got
end,
it. Mm.
where I became an anger management specialist and actually learned what they learned,
Mm-hmm.
learned about the amygdala, learned about our actual brain. Like, I did a brain class.
Nice.
These are things that it took me a long time to realize I had the power, I had choice
Mm-hmm.
to decide how I was going to move and if I was going to continue to let this narrative of I'm just angry and it is what it is, you're pissing me off, so this is going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had to take accountability. The sucky part about taking accountability for now is we have to take accountability retroactively.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you decide, like, damn, I could rewrite my whole narrative and start doing things different, then it's kind of like, damn, I could have been doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
Damn, I just spent 25 years blaming other people for all the shit I did.
Even when I like was learning a lot of like tools to regulate my emotions, regulate my system, I was like, wow, why didn't they teach us this in like kindergarten, first grade? We would have learned at a younger age how to regulate our emotions that we might actually live in a peaceful world. If everybody learned the same basic skills at a young age, then it would be programmed like all this like the terrible thing I said, right? Like all these terrible programs we all grow up with. That would be one of our core positive programs.
Hopefully,
If yeah,
in
positive
theory,
in theory, and then we
because
would be able to like start tapping, and we'd be everyone's getting ready, and we're like, oh, let me tap in my system, let me regulate here, let me shake it out.
yeah, yeah, but
We'll get
learning a
there.
thing and applying a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I did probably, without exaggerating, I did at least 9 versions of anger management throughout my tour of DLC
Yeah,
and the federal institutions. Right, I only did it once to become certified as a certified anger management specialist, and the reason was like my mentality. I decided I made new agreements with myself, but it's also application,
mm-hmm.
right? So I said that to say I learned all about anger management 9 different times
Mm-hmm.
in different ways. Some of them were 3 months long, some of them were like 2 weeks long, some of you know what I mean?
Yeah,
All
yeah, yeah.
different kinds of little
But you weren't
courses.
ready then. Like you
Yeah,
were when you were ready,
exactly.
you were ready.
So to learn a thing is one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but to actually apply it to where you can benefit from it and your life and the people around you can benefit from it. That's where change happens,
Yep.
right? You know the things like you just did a CPC training, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, the RCA
Or the Recovery
Recovery
Coach
Coach
Academy,
Academy.
a couple weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in these skills, you learned all these different tools
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't know before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you apply these tools in a way that not only takes care of you and allows you to have grace with yourself, give yourself grace for some of the things that you've done that you're not proud of, but also the tools that you're going to use to hold space for others who may find that video. How are you going to navigate those types of conversations when you have clientele,
That's a good question.
right? And they come in and maybe they've been receiving your services for so long, pop up this viral video from however long ago and decide, hey, what's up with this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you navigate that conversation without blaming
Mm-hmm.
or without sharing the mess?
Good question. And this is something that has actually came across my mind a little bit. Not necessarily a worry, but something that I wanted to be prepared for. So it's really a good question to get my brain and juices going. I feel that when someone would approach that question, I would be real with them. I'm a real person. I'm authentic. I like to be as real and raw as I can. And I would be on it. I don't know what I'm allowed to say curse word wise on here, but I would say I effed up. I really effed up. I said something that I should have not said when my emotions were not regulated. I said something when I did not have the tools and the skills to regulate all the feels. And I don't like myself for what I said. And through that journey of saying something that I didn't like, saying something that was out of character, exhibiting that, and also sharing that to a global audience, that was through all of the backlash, even though, don't always take every people's narrative, it was it was more drive for me to work on myself more, to dive into my own psyche more, to dive into my own mental health more, to dive into more tools to regulate. Well, not regulate. I've been trying to reword that phrase because we don't want to regulate our emotions. We want to be with all of our emotions, the full spectrum of emotions, but appropriately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anger is sacred if we know how to express it appropriately. Sadness doesn't have to be about something heavy. You could be sad about something amazing. But if we learn these tools, and this is what I would explain to them like, hey, these are all the trainings, these are all the tools I learned so that I will never do that again. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want to be in that space, in that place again. And no matter what happened that led me to that spot, I'm the only one that's responsible for that incident. that I can't blame anybody else. I said it. I did it. And I take full accountability for that. But I do believe that with the tools that I've learned through that and the support that I've gotten through that experience, I don't think that I could ever be in a situation like that ever again. And this summer, I've had a lot of situations that the universe threw my way to be like, hey, let's put all these tools to practice. And I think I at least got a B plus, A minus on most of, most of the assignments, I would say. And even the one time I caught myself, I said something kind of, you said it really well. You say the thing that you know is gonna hurt. And I said something to someone, they were walking away, they wouldn't look at me in the eye, and I got really frustrated, and that was a trigger for me. And I said, she just like look at me and talk to me like an adult. Now, to me, in my brain in that moment, like we don't think about the thing that we know we're going to say to hurt them. In that moment, I didn't think that was a big deal. But obviously, I knew that was what, I generated that on purpose to hurt that person. And it did hurt that person. And we had our space, we cooled off, and we talked about it. We hugged it out, we were good by the end of it. And I apologized. In that moment, I took full accountability and responsibility. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I get triggered when people don't look at me in the eye. I feel like it's a form of disrespect. I understand culturally that's different for everybody. So I apologize that I said that. That was not right of me to say that. I didn't know though that that would be a trigger for you. And if you could please explain to me so I can learn from my mistakes and do better, like how would something like that, how could I dissect that so that I'm not only just like not repeating my same mistakes, but I'm being more mindful and more self-aware of like, this is a grown man. This man is in his 40s. He has children. When I said act like a grown man, in my brain, I would have never thought that was going to be like a trauma informed conversation. Mm. So that was really eye opening for me. That was probably like my hardest test of the summer. I think everything else I did pretty good job with navigating my own emotions and navigating my own system, and even to a point where now if I feel myself getting amped up with like my mom, the people that you love and care about the most get you the most, I'll even say, hey, my system's getting a little dysregulated, I'm gonna have to hang up the phone, or I'll start doing breath work or shaking, using a tool. So I don't, like you're saying, like now I'm at that capacity, and also learning emotional intelligence has been huge for me, and learning the energies of other people. And if I could feel someone starting to get ramped up, now I could be more mindful to take 10 steps back, or how I'm going to approach that next move. I'm not going to amp and meet their
That's
level.
That's when I cut on the AC, right?
Yeah, I like
it. Get authentically curious about ourselves and the other person, because when we come through that, you keep hearing Amanda say trauma informed, right? And essentially it just means that like anything that somebody's been through that could cause them to feel activated or triggered. I mean, people use a lot of different words to describe the same thing. It's basically bringing up something from their past that was harmful in our speech or in our approach. And I know you were saying something about like regulation. Now, when I say emotional regulation, I say that to communicate with people because they understand what that means. For me, becoming a CAMS 1, a certified anger management specialist, was actually more about aggression management, because we're going to experience big emotions no matter what. Anger is a primary emotion, in my opinion, not a secondary one, as we were kind of raised on, right? Because babies get angry. So I feel like if it was secondary emotion, babies, like how are they navigating to a secondary emotion, right? So anyways, that's just a whole nother rabbit hole. But what it's about is managing our behavior during an experience of an overwhelmingly big emotion. Hence, increasing our emotional intelligence, which we can do by cutting on the AC. Being authentically curious. When you cut on the AC, you can cool down a heightened perception, right? We get activated, we get our blood boils, but anger isn't the only thing that can turn up the heat in our physiology, right? Other big emotions, fear, anxiety, all these things can dysregulate our temperature. And so if we actually just use the AC method, Coach B's method, cut
Yeah, I
on the
love that
AC,
one on one of the videos I
right?
watched of
Yeah, yeah,
yours.
cut on the AC, get authentically curious, wonder about the things that are causing this reaction in yourself. Because the more we learn ourselves, the easier it is to give other people grace.
Mm-hmm.
If you give yourself grace, if you give yourself that curiosity and that tender, loving care and those affirmations, and give yourself undivided attention and active listening, like
Mm-hmm.
use the skills on yourself. What is your body telling you? What is your trauma brain telling you? What message is being conveyed when you experience an interaction that leads to you getting activated, right? What's happening? What's going on? Not what's wrong. We don't like that. We
Mm-hmm.
say what happened or what's happening. If you're able to catch it in the now, what's happening? What's going on? Right? As soon as you ask that question, some of the pressure automatically relieves. It just it helps to learn yourself. That's what the pursuit of internal evolution is all about. How can you learn yourself in order to become your best self? Or how can you just be your best self in any given moment, at any given time, and be okay with that, not having regrets about what you did or didn't do or did or didn't say, but just being all right with like how you navigated the day. And at the end of the night, thinking about it, looking around, asking, playing back some things in your head and just being like, all right, it's cool. It's good. Like we can get to tomorrow now, right? And not letting any of what happened today roll over into tomorrow, especially if it's like something that's weighing you down, that's heavy, that's negative, that's a
Mm-hmm.
minus, taking away from your positive experience. Um, I just really think it's important um, that we talked about that.
No, I appreciate
That
that.
that you know, I know people are specifically invested in my journey,
Mm-hmm.
but also in my well-being.
Mm-hmm.
I had some concerns. Some people reached out and was like, "Hey, is that the person you really want on there because of this thing?" And I'm like, "Yo, the way I operate, what you show me is what I base my opinion of you on,
Yeah, I'm the
right?"
same way. Like I like to get
So,
to know you before I make a prejudgment
yeah,
based off of like an entertainment or let's keep it real. Like these are all channels on an entertainment platform that we people prejudge everybody on every single platform that they follow and they subscribe to based off of the small snippets of data that was put on by the free will of each person using the platform. And they create this entire profile of all these people in their brain, and then they form their own judgments and projections based off of their own programming, upbringing, and culture as it's getting filtered through this screen. And that's the I think the beautiful part of social media. And I think that it brings awareness and it opens our eyes to so much perspective. And it gives us the opportunity to, if people are authentic like yourself and like my own platform through the years, it gives people an opportunity to experience what does all like the influence of authenticity, right? Because
I like that.
in the news and on movies and TV shows, we're 200-300 years into believing that if we're not like that or that or that, there must be something wrong with us. But we all, like you're saying, we all have done some stuff, and I can't even tell you how many people reached out to me in the last 2 years and they're like, if all the bad things I did was recorded, damn, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah,
And I'm like, well, that's the thing, is we all, two wrongs don't make a right either, right? And I messed up. But some of this stuff, and this is important to just even touch on, and for other people on social media, there's so much mental health too that goes in to situations like this, and the mental health impact of like the comment section. Like I can't wait to make a documentary on just the comment section alone and mental health. I know a lot of people who have taken their lives because of what the internet, right, has created a narrative off of one incident, created all narratives, and then all of the projections and judgments of other people. That I know many people who have done that, and that's hard, right? That nobody wants that. And I didn't realize only until last week in therapy that I was scared the last 2 years. I was so scared for like my actual life based off of some of the comments that I received of people describing on how they should literally off me in detail, of millions and millions of people calling me, the threats, the voicemails. Like, that was a side of it that everybody who was just like throwing the negative responses on, nobody stopped for one moment to think about, like, okay, she's a real human being, a real person. And,
Maybe
you
she
know,
regrets this shit.
yeah, like maybe she oopsied and like we shouldn't, like, I could get emotional just like talking, about it because it put me in a bad place. Like, I was in mental health 3 times since this incident. 3 times I was in mental health because I acted like I wasn't scared. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, I'm sorry for what I did. I kept taking accountability, responsibility, but that didn't take away, no matter how sorry I was or how much accountability, responsibility I have for what I did, it doesn't take away other people's actions. It doesn't take away their words. It doesn't take away how everyone was responding to it and still responding, to this very day. And it took a lot on me. And I had to have a lot of really good support to keep me afloat and not let that be like, a big thing for
Yeah.
me. Like, so that was something that's important to touch on too, is like with that trauma informed. I hope that through my platforms and what I went through, that I could be a voice for people to one day when I feel more comfortable fully sharing the story without crying about it, right? Be a voice for people where they can maybe learn to like think before they speak on the internet too, not just out loud, right? That whole like think before you speak, don't say something that
Yeah.
you wouldn't.
Wait. The acronym wait.
Yeah,
Why am I
yeah,
talking?
exactly. So that's something that's important in a different perspective that like no one's really touched on or talked about yet, and that's what literally got me to peer support. That's how it, like, my mental health was bad. I was hospitalized within like a month or two after that incident happened. And when I got out and I was released, I was immediately put into the intensive outpatient program of 12 hours a week of therapy. And when I was released from that, I did another therapy. And then I was on another 90-day program. And then I did peer support. So,
Yeah.
I took it serious. I was like, I messed up and I don't
So
ever want
so
to do it
you're
again.
you're you're currently
Mm-hmm.
on this journey
Yeah.
of healing and retribution
Mm-hmm.
and trying to reconcile yourself with the world essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm trying. I was loved once upon a time ago. How do I be loved again? Kind of.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking good questions, and thank you for like being open to like diving into something that that's hard, and that I'm sure you did get a lot of calls from people like you're saying, right? Like, that's a very real thing. And what was the first thing I said to you when you said, "Hey, you want to be on this podcast?" I literally said, "I got to be honest with you. I messed up. I did something stupid. I take full accountability and responsibility for it. Are you sure you want to have me on?" And you're like, "We're in peer support. We mess up. We do better. We learn from it. You're here. You're doing better." And that's why I was like, I appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I put the ask out, a couple people responded, but you're the only one who seen it and was like, "Hey, that aligns with like where I'm going, where I want to go, and what I want to do." And then we had a couple of conversations, and it's like, here we are, right? How did it feel? Kind of like sharing that energy and space with Priscilla.
That was great. I got to meet Priscilla today, everybody, officially. And she has really good energy. As an empath myself, like, I immediately felt like we knew each other, obviously, like, she heard about me from you in the podcast, but it felt just comforting. It felt safe. We immediately hugged each other, talked about her baby, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not taking your place. I'm just here to help a sister out. I'm just here to, be of support in any way that I can to you." I love what you're doing. I love your foundation of, the pursuit of internal evolution, like I love the foundation of it being the four agreements, being about law of attraction and having the hard conversations, but also talking about big wins, talking about we've been through something. Here's the message through that mess. And when you describe like what you guys were doing, you guys are talking about all these topics. I'm like, oh my god, that's what I talk about for fun, and everyone's like, you're boring, Amanda. Be quiet. We're not into this. So when you're like, we join for like an hour and we talk about X, Y, and Z, I'm like, oh my god, sign me up. I'm there. That's the energy I like. That's where I want to put my energy into, right? I want to pour my energy into things that make me happy, that bring me joy, that I enjoy talking about, and bringing awareness to topics and being of support for people. Like showing up on here, we are literally vulnerable. We are very vulnerable, and we're being our vulnerable selves to a literal global audience. That
Yeah,
takes courage.
it is. It does. And, you know, I'm not one of those people who fear conversation,
Me
right?
either.
If these things come up and you were to have a repeat, it's like, what the,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on here? Like, have I been had? You decide. At the end of the day, this is a human being. I'm a human being. We're sharing energy, we're sharing space. If this person were those things, would this be possible? Use your own mind. Think about things from a bigger picture. That's what I try to do. I used to be very, very, very narrow minded, and I thought in two colors.
That's all the fluoride in New York City's water.
Right? I thought in two different colors for a long time in my life, and that kept me from seeing so much more of life. It kept me from seeing even me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Your full authentic expression is colorful, is vibrant.
Exactly. Focused on the different things that led me to lots of incarcerations and lots of guilt tripping adventures down dark holes, and putting it on my mom or putting it on my baby's mom or putting it on my older brother or my older cousin or this big homie or that everybody but me, right? I lived that life where everything I did was everybody else's fault. I don't anymore. And it's because I found that I already had all the things that I felt like made me hollow and made me, you know, not give a fuck and act out. But really, it came from a place of trauma. It came from
Mm-hmm.
a place of hurt
Mm-hmm.
and uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
and not really knowing who I was, not knowing my own value and worth when it comes to my talents. And so when I was able to tap into that and actually start to believe I had some kind of say so in the way that my life turned out, things started to shift. Once the veil lifted, couldn't put it back on and play dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew I was accountable for my life, for my future, and for my past. That was probably the biggest lesson, is understanding that. And then with the empathic energy I have and tapping into that, once that veil was lifted, I can't not care now. I don't know how. Before it was just like a shield. It was I weaponized my anger, but really it was to protect
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Your ego was protecting the parts that it wasn't ready to live with.
And so now that I'm in this space, I'm not only stronger, but I'm freer, lighter, as strong as I am now in like holistically. I don't even care to engage in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
When I thought that I was being challenged and that I had to be a certain way, all I wanted was conflict, which is ironic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the very thing that I pursued, it's like, was the strength and all the different things. Now that I have that, it doesn't coincide with war or enemies or being contrary or trolling. Like I just, That's not where my energy sits. That's not what is healthy for me, and it's not what works.
And you wouldn't have been able to create this if you were focusing all your time and energy into that
No,
and all those things.
absolutely not. Like this was a seed and it grew, and that's why our logo is even a tree. And it's because we plant things that grow from the inside out. That is all things life grow, right? Dead things are already out there. And so when it boils down to it, I look forward to continuing this journey. I'm going to continue with Pi Talk. Um, and I think I'm going to continue with you.
Yes.
Priscilla has green lighted that as well.
Nice.
And we'll keep doing the things that we do to help others see that there's a better way to be a better version of themselves. Um, One thing we always do, shout out to Joshua Smith and Jordan Davis, is we read a page from the Keep Effing Going. This is day 27, episode 27. This says, quiet your mind, visualize positive change, and speak this affirmation with conviction. I am not afraid to make mistakes because I know they are opportunities to learn. Again, those of you that have been watching this show, I do not open the page until I'm about to read it. This was not planned. The message is the message, right? Action item.
And
Go
the
ahead.
action item is identify one mistake or failure you've this is good. Identify one mistake or failure you've experienced recently and reflect on what you learned from it. I think we did that today's episode, but I invite y'all to do it too. Use this experience as a reminder that mistakes are natural and can lead to growth and improvement. And on that, I invite y'all to try out this action item and let us know in the comments what came up for you. What did you experience? If you're open to it, if you're open to being vulnerable with us and sharing, let us know. And maybe some stuff that come up we could talk about in the future and address that comes up for people and maybe give them some tools and like, hey, this worked for us.
Absolutely. All right. One of the last things we do, as always, is we come and we talk about the four agreements, right? Be impeccable with your word. Manifest your true intentions. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent will manifest through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word.
Mm. Your words are a spell.
Your turn.
Mine are too perfect. I swear we did not plan these. Become immune to poison. Don't take anything personally. The whole world can gossip about you. And if you don't take it personally, you are immune. Immunity to poison in the middle of hell is the gift of the second agreement. Ooh, that was
I like
spot on
gifts.
too. I like gifts too.
Always do your best. Your own body is a manifestation of God. And if you honor your body, everything will change for you. Practice giving love to every part of your body. This will plant seeds of love in your mind. And when they grow, you will love, honor, and respect your body immensely. I could have swore I was just saying some stuff like this earlier in this episode.
Well, I'll wait for this one. Are you ready for my last card, everyone? Drum roll, please. Eliminate gossip. I swear we did not. This is the universe speaking through. Don't make assumptions. Make assumptions is a setup for suffering because usually we gossip about our assumptions. We make assumptions and believe we are right, then we defend our assumptions and try to make others wrong.
Oh. So, do you want to tell us who the quote came from?
You. The quote came from you, and I actually really like that quote. It landed really well with me.
Pretty sure we don't need a Wikipedia on me. But yeah, we showed up and we didn't have a quote, so yeah, that was my quote. It's actually on my Facebook. So, yeah, be wary of those who wield weapons made of your past mistakes because they do not know you are protected by accountability and change.
We should make a poetry book with all your inspirational quotes.
Hmm. Food for thought.
Mm.
Last but not least, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, tell us what you think. Continue with the comments. As you see, I do respond to them immediately as they come through. I'm all about rebuilding what some people would be perceiving as broken. Let's put it back together, right? If that's your life, if that's your relationships, if that's your self worth, your esteem, whatever it is, let's grow it. Let's pursue internal evolution. Let's indulge in pie.
Speaking of indulging in pie, a blueprint to recovery agreements. Betterment, love, unity, preserving recovery intentionally, navigating trauma. I agree that I want to make changes to better myself, my life, and my relationships. Today, I am making the following internal agreements to write a narrative for myself that I can be proud of and take ownership of. I agree to be better than I was yesterday, to be the best version of myself in any given moment, and to focus on what I can do, what I can control, and what I invest my energy in. I agree to love myself first, putting positive energy, thought, time, and action into my own well being, and treating myself as if I am my own very best friend by acknowledging my strengths, appreciating my beauty, and protecting myself in all ways. I agree to connect with others in a positive and authentic way. I can accept that curiosity fosters connection. I agree to look for the commonalities among others and myself and practice open mindedness when confronted with something new by asking questions that are meant to seek understanding and promote unity. I agree that I will do my best to preserve my progress in recovery and growth, and to use the tools I have gained and will gain to be intentional in my healing. I will seek to face my past, present, and future experiences with intent to navigate trauma as little collateral damage to others as possible. I will do my best to remind myself not to hold others responsible for my behavior, my trauma, or my peace. Although I may have been a victim, I agree today that I am not a victim and I will not victimize anyone in the process of my healing journey. With this blueprint, I agree to start the process of building a foundation for the better I know I deserve and the recovery I admit is possible. I agree to add these principles into my toolbox, among others, for the betterment of myself, my family, and my community. Most importantly, I agree that I am worth it. Thank you.